All right, let's get straight into it. I'm gonna go into this whole thing about how the Israelites look, in the Bible. And I'm gonna actually pull scriptures that prove they were so-called black men. So I'm gonna get into this lesson. All right, so the Spirit been having me really work on, go in depth on this matter, right? So first off, this would be an accurate depiction of, as we know, as Moses, but that wasn't what our people was presented. They was given the so-called white man in his movies, his cinema, his images, his artwork as them being so-called white men. All right, look at the movie Ten Commandments, total whitewash. So let's get into this lesson. So this is where I'm pulling this information from, right? And I recommend you brothers and you sisters, you get you one of these right here. It's a valuable resource, Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary. So biblical scholars put this together. So let's get into it. So going to Ham, right? Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitor of the dog races, not the Negroes. All right, so it's going to show you that it's a difference from a Hamite and a Shemite, an Israelite, right? But it's not the Negroes, so we're not from the seed of Ham. And that's a popular teaching that's taught throughout these Christianity denominations, that so-called black people descend from the seed of Ham, the curse of Ham, right? I did a lesson on that. So sticking to the subject, what I want you to pay attention to is he became the progenitor of the dog races, right? Not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, the Ethiopians, the Libyans, and the Canaanites. So I want you to focus in on the Egyptians. Remember this. And so, the Egyptians were dark flesh people, brown to dark flesh. And I'm going to show you some images of the true Egyptians. All right, so this is my book right here. Right here, I got in my hand. This is the Encyclopedia of Ancient Egypt. So we're going to get into the real images of how the Egyptians look, right? So these would be the Egyptians, so-called, right? And you see one thing, they're not so-called white people, all right? So, but when you look anything up on Google, you look at all these movies, anything on TV, anything that's on the internet, in most cases, they've been whitewashed. So most of our people, that's not common knowledge how the true Egyptians look. And our people was dwelling among the Egyptians as slaves, right? All right, so let me get up out of here. But you can do more research, but just look at the images of the Egyptians. I just want to make sure you see this so I can register. So I'm gonna get into something very important. So let me go here. Remember that right here. Ham, the dog races, right? Dog flesh. The Egyptians. So we know the Egyptians were dog flesh people. All right, we saw images and we saw proof through the scholars. So I'm gonna show you something. This is Exodus chapter 2, and it started 18. And when they came to Ruel, their father, so this is, matter of fact, let me jump to 17 so you know it's talking about Moses. Exodus 2 and 17, and the shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and helped them and watered the flocks. So this dealing with Moses, right? 18, and when they came to Ruel, their father, so he said, how is that ye are come so soon today? So why you came back early? Well, y'all, he's talking to his daughters, right? Salakia. Let me jump down. 19, and they said, an Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us and watered the flock. So this was a case when Moses got mistaken for an Egyptian. First off, you have to understand this. First and foremost, we got to use common sense. If he was a so-called white man, he would not have got mistaken for an Egyptian, because we went back here. Let's go back here. Let me show you. So he got mistaken for an Egyptian. We just timed one and one together to make two. It says the dog races Ham, right? The Egyptians. So the dog races, Ham was the progenitor of the dog races, including the Egyptian, but the Egyptians had dog flesh. So it's impossible that Moses was a so-called white man, because in this context, he got mistaken. They thought the daughters, real daughters thought he was an Egyptian because of his skin tone, first off, and the way he speech, his speech and it is attire, right? He just came out, he just came from Egypt, so he would still be carrying some of that Egyptian custom with him, right? I'm just gonna keep it real short and simple. Let's go here. And Paul got mistaken for an Egyptian, so this would be a more accurate depiction, as we know as Moses. It's not the so-called white man, right? And they go to show you that the Israelites were so-called black people. They had brown to dark flesh. This is undisputable, right? And this is out of something called the Russian icons. In this book right here, because it got so much condemning information in it, this is a real images out this book. This book is $2,000, man. See, Russian icons. When it's show you the true depictions of the Israelites, the patriarchs out of the Bible, the Messiah, so on and so forth, before they got whitewashed. So let's go to Paul, right? Paul got mistaken for an Egyptian as well. And you can't get mistaken for an Egyptian unless you have brown to dark flesh, because that's one of the telltale signs to know an Egyptian, right? All right, let's go to Acts 21, I think down to 37. This is the book of Acts 21 and 37. And as Paul was to be led into the council, he said unto the chief captain, may I speak unto thee? So this was Paul, right? Who said, canst thou speak Greek? Paul was very learned. He knew how to speak different languages, include Greek. 38, are not that Egyptian? So the chief captain mistaken Paul for an Egyptian. Why? Because of Paul's appearance. First off, he was a so-called black man. Again, got to show you again so you can kind of get it through your head. We know how the Egyptians look right here. They was dark skinned. It says, Ham, he became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes. That it's a difference there. But the Negroes and the so-called Negroes, Hebrew Israelites, will have the same skin complexion as the Hamites, but two different customs, two different races. It says, but the Egyptians, so we know the Egyptians was dark skinned. So again, read this again so you can kind of get it. It says, Acts 21 and 38, it says, are not that Egyptian? Why would he call him why would he refer to him as an Egyptian if he had so-called white skin, which is no such thing as white people or white skin? The so-called white man is red because his blood shows forth through his skin anytime he show any kind of emotion, right? And if they be in the sun extended amount of time, are not that Egyptian Paul, which before these days made us an uproar and led us out into the wilderness, 4,000 men that were murderers. So 39, but Paul said, I am a man which am a Jew. So he had to let him know that he was an Israelite, right? A Jew. The Jew is going back into the tribe of Judah. And if you know the history, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi got referred to as Jews at one time, right? They just called them Jews. But Paul was a Benjamite. And I'm going to show you that. Matter of fact, let me go to that next. Romans 11 and 1. And let's go to this, a cut on that the Lord made a covenant with all these other nations that he cast away Israel. That's not true. That's a lie. Romans 11 and 1. And I say, then have God cast away his people? God forbid. For I also am a Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. So this Paul. Let me prove that to you. I who wrote the book of Romans, right? And the book of Romans was written to the Israelites that was in Rome. It wrote to no so-called white people, man. All right. He said Apostle Paul wrote the Romans, right? Wrote the book of Romans. All right. So this is Paul, which is an Israelite from the tribe of Benjamin that got mistaken for an Egyptian. Clear as day, man. That's trying to get much as I can. This is Joseph as well. Joseph also was in Egypt, right? And his brothers went to go, buy, because there was a famine in the land of Israel, so they went to go buy food, corn from Egypt. So let me read this. Let me start at Genesis 42, and let me start at 2. And he said, Behold, I have heard that there is corn in Egypt. Get ye down thither and buy for us from thence, that we might live and not die. And Joseph 10 brethren went down to buy corn in Egypt. 4. But Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob, sent not with his brethren, because he didn't want nothing to happen to him, right? So he sent the other 10 sons. For he said, lest peradventure mischief befall him. So he was worried about his son. That's Jacob, right? Right here, they father. So, okay, let's read on this. Let me jump down to 7. And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but made himself strange unto them, and spake roughly unto them, and said unto them, Whence come ye? And they said, From the land of Canaan to buy food. So if Joseph was a so-called white man, how the hell did he blend in with the Egyptians? And how didn't his brothers recognize him, right? His brother would have recognized him if he was a so-called white man. But no, Joseph looked like the Egyptians for his skin and appearance. All right, but Joseph had took on to the custom, the appearance, the dress fashion, and he was raised into the Egyptian culture, so they didn't know that was him, and he spoke roughly to them. He kind of disguised his voice, all right, something like that, like a different dialect, right? Genesis 42 and 8. Let me read this again. Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. All right, so again, if Joseph was a so-called white man, I mean, he would have stuck out like a sore thumb, right? Matthew 12, 2 and 13. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared unto Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise and take the young child, is Yahweh, and his mother, which is be his mother Mary, and flee into Egypt. So Yahweh, Joseph, Mary, and Yahweh went into Egypt to blend in. And be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod would seek the young child to destroy him. All right, so man, this doctrine, if you so-called white people, is over, man. Christianity is finished. All right, so I'm gonna show you some more images before I segue out of this lesson. But you see right here, this is indoctrination. That's what they show your kids, and so these kids grow up and be all fucking brainwashed. The 12 sons of Jacob. You see this witchcraft right here. But we've been set up to show you the truth. You see, when you look up Paul, they got him as a so-called white man. They not showing him as he truly looked. Yahweh, so-called white man, this devil. All right, but when you look at the true depictions of the Israelites before they got whitewashed, they were so-called black men, because that's how the Hebrew Israelites look. That's where we come from. Right, Peter and Paul. You got our people building the pyramids in Egypt. This is on tombs inside of Egypt. Man, they don't get no clearer than this, man. You see this? Russian icons. It's Yahweh before they whitewashed him, man. All right. It was common knowledge that he was a so-called black man in the time of the Dark Ages, when the so-called black men ruled Israelites for 1,000 years. All right. You see what it is. All right, these in the tombs, right? And that's why these devils are doing damage control, because they're trying to control the narrative. They're trying to continue to push so-called white supremacy, right? But I'm running out of time. I'm going to call the lesson on this. Kahala Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shah by Hashem, Rakak Wadash. Shalom.